My sister Emma called me and she was crying badly while I was on duty. I could barely understand what she was saying through her sobs. They destroyed it. My coffee shop is gone. Everything is gone, she sobbed. Slow down, Emma. What happened? I asked, already starting my car. I just went out for 3 hours to buy groceries and school supplies for the kids. When I came back, there were bulldozers. They demolished my entire coffee shop. Everything I worked for is gone. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That coffee shop was everything to Emma, her only way to support her 2 children as a single mom. She had built it from nothing, working endless hours while keeping her kids close by in a special play area she created. I'm coming right now, I told her, flipping on my sirens. When I arrived, my heart sank. Where Emma's cozy coffee shop once stood was nothing but broken wood, smashed glass, and crushed furniture. Emma stood in front of the rubble, her arms around her children who were both crying. Her face was pale with shock. Who did this? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the anger building inside me. Emma pointed to a sign that had been placed on the property, "Future Upscale Retail Coming Soon, approved by Pine Valley Business Association." I recognized the logo immediately. The business association was run by Karen Maxwell, who owned the chain coffee shop across town. She'd been trying to force small businesses out for months. What Karen didn't know was that she hadn't just destroyed any single mom's coffee shop. She had demolished the sister of the county sheriff's livelihood. And I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Before we continue the story, let me know in the comments section from where you are watching. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Emma had been a single mom for over 3 years now. Her husband Charlie died in a car accident when Lily was only 4 and Aiden was 6. Charlie had always been passionate about coffee, constantly experimenting with different beans and brewing methods in their garage. Opening a coffee shop together had been their shared dream. After the funeral, with 2 small children depending solely on her, Emma took Charlie's life insurance money and made that dream a reality. Charlie's place wasn't just a coffee shop, it was his legacy and now their family's only source of income. What made the shop special was how Emma had designed it with her children in mind. A corner near the counter had child-sized furniture, books, and toys where Lily and Aiden could stay after school. Customers loved seeing the kids grow up in the shop, often helping with homework or bringing special treats for them. The walls featured Charlie's collection of coffee mugs from around the world, family photos, and the children's artwork. His handwritten recipes were framed behind the counter. The shop had quickly become more than just a business. It was the heart of our community, where people gathered not just for excellent coffee but for the warm, family atmosphere Emma created. Now it was all gone, demolished in just a few hours of her absence. I needed to investigate properly before revealing my position as county sheriff. While Emma took the children to get something to eat, I carefully examined what remained of the coffee shop. Among the debris I found something interesting, a business card partially covered in dust. Maxwell Demolition Services with a phone number and logo. Maxwell, the same last name as Karen. That seemed far from coincidental. I approached Mr. Jenkins, who owned the bookstore across the street. "Did you see what happened this morning?" "Sure did," he nodded grimly. Big crew showed up around 10 a.m. They had paperwork, official-looking vests, everything seemed legitimate. The foreman kept checking his watch like they were on a tight schedule. "Did you happen to notice who was supervising?" That business association woman drove by twice to check on their progress. Didn't even get out of her fancy car, just watched through the window with this satisfied look on her face. I took notes, though I didn't need to. And nobody questioned why they were demolishing an active business? They had some document with an official seal. Said there were structural violations that made it an emergency demolition. By the time anyone thought to call Emma, it was too late. I talked to 3 more witnesses who confirmed the same story. Then I called the city permit office, careful not to identify myself as the sheriff. "I'm inquiring about demolition permits for 423 Main Street," I explained to the clerk. "Let me check. No, nothing for that address. No applications, no approvals, nothing pending either." "What about emergency demolition orders?" "For structural integrity reasons. Those would still be in our system and there's nothing. Besides, those require an inspector's on-site assessment and 72-hour notice to the owner except in cases of imminent collapse." I thanked her and hung up. Next, I did a quick public record search on my phone for Maxwell Demolition Services. The company was registered to Robert Maxwell, Karen's husband, according to their social media profiles. This was becoming clearer. Karen had used her husband's company to demolish my sister's coffee shop without proper permits, documentation, or notification. They deliberately timed it while Emma was away, and they'd fabricated the emergency nature of the demolition. I carefully photographed everything: the demolition sign, the scattered business cards, the lack of any official notices. As a sheriff, I knew what evidence would be needed for a solid case. Now it was time to pay Karen Maxwell a visit. Not as the county sheriff, but as a concerned brother. I wanted to see how deep she would dig her own grave before realizing who she was really dealing with. I drove to downtown where Karen's chain coffee shop, Maxwell Premium Coffee, doubled as the business association headquarters. The contrast with Emma's warm, homey shop couldn't be more striking: all chrome, black leather, and minimalist decor with prices twice as high. Karen sat behind a glass desk in a small office at the back. Her blonde hair was perfectly styled in an expensive bob cut, her manicured nails tapping impatiently on her phone screen. She barely looked up when I entered. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone suggesting she had more important things to do. "I'm here about Charlie's Place, the coffee shop that was demolished this morning." This got her attention. She set down her phone and gave me a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Ah yes, an unfortunate but necessary action. The property had multiple violations and was bringing down standards in our developing upscale district." "I'm Emma Johnson's brother," I said calmly. She never received any notification about violations or demolition plans. Karen's smile tightened. "We sent multiple notices. If she chose to ignore them, that's hardly our responsibility." "May I see copies of these notices? And the demolition approval?" "All procedures were followed correctly," she replied, adjusting a gold bracelet on her wrist. "The business association has authority to take action against non-compliant properties." "I'd still like to see the documentation," I insisted. Karen's eyes narrowed slightly. "That's confidential association business. Besides, what's done is done. That eyesore will be replaced with something that actually enhances our district." "You realize that was a widow's only source of income? She has 2 young children to support. Perhaps she should have considered that before opening a shabby little coffee shop in a developing premium district." Karen picked up her phone again. "Our market research shows customers prefer upscale experiences like Maxwell Premium Coffee, not amateur operations with children running around." I fought to keep my expression neutral. "The demolition company that did the work, they're owned by your husband, correct?" For the first time, Karen looked slightly uncomfortable. "The association uses various local services. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting in 5 minutes. I'd like to see the association's bylaws that authorize demolition of private property," I pressed. Karen stood up, impatience clear on her face. "Sir, I've explained the situation. If your sister has concerns, she can file a formal complaint with our review board. Now, I'll have to ask you to leave before I call security." I nodded slowly, memorizing every detail of her office. The framed permit on the wall from 3 years ago, the association documents visible on her desk, the security camera in the corner that was recording our interaction. "We'll be in touch," I said simply, turning to leave. "I wouldn't waste time fighting this," Karen called after me. "We're planning to break ground on the new retail space next week." I didn't respond. She had no idea that she had just admitted to multiple crimes in front of the county sheriff. And I was going to make sure she faced every possible consequence for what she'd done to my sister's family. Back in my patrol car, I made a call to the county records office. "Jenny, it's Sheriff Johnson. I need you to check something for me. Any demolition permits issued for 423 Main Street in the last month?" "Give me a moment," she replied. I could hear her typing. "Nothing. No applications, no approvals, nothing for that address at all. Can you email me official confirmation of that? And check if the business association has any legal authority to order demolitions." "They absolutely don't," Jenny said immediately. "Only the county building department can issue demolition permits, and even they require owner notification, proper posting, and a waiting period except in cases of imminent structural danger." Next, I called Mike Roberts, our county prosecutor. "Mike, I've got a situation I need your input on." I explained what happened to Emma's coffee shop. "Jesus, that's completely illegal," he responded. "Destruction of private property, fraud, forgery of official documents, operating without permits. We're talking serious charges here. Are you building a case?" "Yes, but I need to do this by the book since it involves my sister." "I understand. Get me evidence of the demolition order, witness statements, and proof of who authorized it. I'll get things rolling from the legal end." My next stop was Maxwell Demolition Services. The foreman, Bill Decker, looked nervous when I flashed my badge. "Sheriff, I swear we thought it was legit," he explained quickly. Mrs. Maxwell gave us paperwork with county seals. Said it was an emergency demolition due to structural issues. I'll need to see that paperwork, I said. Bill handed over a folder. Inside was a document with what appeared to be official county letterhead and seals, but I immediately spotted several inconsistencies. The department name was slightly wrong, and the signature purported to be from our building inspector, Dave Williams, was clearly forged. Did Mrs. Maxwell mention the timing of this demolition was important? I asked. Bill looked uncomfortable. She specifically said it needed to be done this morning between 10 and 1. Said the owner was difficult and it would be easier if she wasn't present. I recorded his statement, then had him sign an affidavit detailing everything that happened. Over the next few hours, I interviewed several business owners in the district. A pattern quickly emerged. Karen had been systematically targeting small, independent businesses, particularly those that competed with businesses owned by association board members. She fined me $2,000 for putting flower boxes outside my shop, said Maria from the small bakery. Said they didn't match district aesthetics. She threatened to have my license revoked because my bookstore hours extended past 8 p.m. on weekends, added Mr. Jenkins. By evening, I had compiled a substantial case file. Official documentation proving no permits were issued. The forged demolition order. Or witness statements confirming Karen's presence. A Bill's affidavit about the timing and instructions. Evidence of Karen's pattern of harassment. Business records showing the connection between Maxwell Demolition and Karen. Statements from intimidated business owners. I stopped by Emma's house where she was staying with me temporarily. The children were finally asleep after the traumatic day. How are you holding up? I asked, finding her staring blankly at a salvaged photo of Charlie. I don't know how to rebuild from this, she whispered. The insurance won't cover half of what I lost, and that's assuming they even pay out. Emma, I'm building a solid case against Karen. This wasn't just wrong, it was criminal. What good will that do? My shop is still gone. Trust me, I said, showing her the evidence I'd gathered. Karen Maxwell is going to pay for what she did in every possible way. That night, Emma and her children stayed at my house. Getting Lily and Aiden to sleep had been difficult. They kept asking when they could go back to Charlie's place, and if their special corner was okay. Emma finally managed to calm them with promises that everything would somehow be all right, though I could see in her eyes she wasn't sure how to keep that promise. Around midnight, I found Emma sitting at my kitchen table, surrounded by papers, insurance documents, bank statements, and photos of the coffee shop. The insurance company is already giving me problems, she said without looking up. They're claiming the demolition might fall under Act of Government Authority, which isn't fully covered. I sat across from her. That's exactly why we need to prove it wasn't legitimate government action. It was criminal. Even if we prove that, it doesn't solve our immediate problem. Emma pushed a bank statement toward me. I've got about 3 weeks of savings to feed the kids. The new espresso machine I installed last month wiped out my emergency fund. I was counting on the holiday season rush to rebuild it. The weight of her situation hit me hard. This wasn't just about a building, it was about a family's survival. Emma had transformed herself from a grieving widow into a successful business owner, all while raising 2 children alone. Karen Maxwell had destroyed years of hard work in a matter of hours. What about the children's college fund? I asked, knowing Emma had been setting aside money each month. I might have to use it, she whispered, tears forming. I never wanted to touch that money. Charlie was so proud when we started that account. The next morning, I watched as Emma tried to maintain normalcy for her kids, making pancakes in the shape of animals like she always did at the coffee shop on slow mornings. Aiden picked at his food while Lily kept asking when they could go home. We're going to stay with Uncle Mike for a little while, Emma explained gently. It'll be like a vacation. But what about my friends? Aiden asked. Tyler and his mom come to the shop every Wednesday for hot chocolate. And who's going to water the plants? Lily added, her small face creased with worry. Emma looked to me, momentarily lost for words. The plants will be okay, I assured Lily, though we both knew the cheerful row of succulents in hand-painted pots had been crushed in the demolition. And your friends can come visit you here. Later that day, while Emma was job hunting online, I took the kids to the park to give her some space. Aiden kicked a soccer ball half-heartedly while Lily sat on a bench clutching her backpack. Uncle Mike? Lily asked suddenly. Are we poor now? The question caught me off guard. Why do you ask that, sweetie? I heard Mom crying last night. She said we might not have enough money soon. Her small face was serious. Tyler at school is poor. He gets free lunch. Will we get free lunch too? I sat next to her, choosing my words carefully. Your mom is just worried right now because the coffee shop is gone. But we're going to fix this. You don't need to worry about being poor. But who's going to help us? Daddy can't help because he's in heaven. That innocent statement hardened my resolve. These children had already lost their father. They shouldn't have to lose their security and home as well, all because of Karen Maxwell's greed and abuse of power. That evening, Emma received calls from several coffee shop regulars who'd heard what happened. They wanted to help but weren't sure how. One of her former employees started an online fundraiser. The local newspaper called requesting an interview. This community loves you, I told Emma as she hung up from her fourth call. They want to help. I don't want charity, she said firmly. I want justice. I want my business back. And you'll get both, I promised. Karen Maxwell didn't just destroy a building. She attacked a family and a community gathering place. And she's going to learn that was the biggest mistake of her life. The next morning, I decided to take a broader approach. Karen Maxwell's abuse of power clearly extended beyond my sister's coffee shop. I started at Maria's bakery, where the owner had mentioned being fined for flower boxes. Sheriff Johnson, what can I do for you? Maria asked as I entered. I'm investigating the illegal demolition of Charlie's place, I explained. But I believe there's a pattern of harassment by the business association. Maria looked around nervously before lowering her voice. Karen has been terrorizing all of us. Last month, she tried to fine me $2,000 for my outdoor seating. When I refused to pay, she sent someone to inspect my kitchen and suddenly found 3 violations. Would you be willing to make an official statement? She hesitated. I'm scared, Sheriff. She has connections at the bank that holds my business loan. I understand. But together, we might be able to stop her. By lunchtime, I had similar conversations with 6 other business owners. All had stories of intimidation, arbitrary fines and threats. Most were too afraid to go on record, but 3 agreed to provide signed statements. At the bookstore, Mr. Jenkins had more to share. I've been documenting everything, he said, pulling out a thick folder. Dates, times, witnesses, photos of her inspecting businesses with her husband's construction company. I knew someday someone would need this. This is extremely helpful, I told him, paging through the meticulous records. She's been targeting anyone who doesn't fit her upscale vision. Emma's coffee shop was especially in her crosshairs because it was more popular than her fancy chain store. People chose Emma's place for the atmosphere and reasonable prices. My next stop was the local newspaper. Dave Williams, the reporter I'd known for years, was immediately interested. I've heard rumors about that business association, he said. But nothing concrete enough to publish. I shared what I could without compromising the investigation. I can't officially comment as sheriff since this involves my sister, but I can point you toward business owners willing to talk. This could be a major story about abuse of power and corruption, Dave nodded. I'll start digging. My phone rang. It was Robert Chin, one of the Business Association board members. Sheriff, I need to talk to you privately, he said in a hushed voice. About the coffee shop demolition. We met behind the hardware store, away from security cameras. I had no idea what Karen was planning, he insisted. She told us she had received official condemnation notices for that property. Most of the board never even saw the demolition order. Are you willing to testify to that? He looked nervous but nodded. She's been falsifying board minutes, claiming unanimous votes that never happened. Several of us are ready to come forward. By afternoon I had lined up 3 business owners with signed statements about harassment. A Mr. Jenkins' documentation of Karen's pattern of behavior. A reporter investigating the larger story. 2 business association board members willing to testify. The demolition company foreman's statement. I returned to my office to find Mike, the county prosecutor, waiting. I've been reviewing what you sent over, he said. This is bigger than just illegal demolition. We're looking at fraud, forgery of government documents, abuse of power, conspiracy, and possible racketeering if we can prove her husband's company benefited from these actions. How strong is the case? With what you've gathered, strong enough for arrest warrants. But I'd like more evidence of her direct involvement and knowledge that there were no legal permits. I think I know how to get that, I said. The Business Association has a meeting tomorrow night. I've requested to speak about the demolition. You're going to confront her publicly? I'm going to give her the opportunity to dig her own grave even deeper, I replied. And I'm going to make sure everyone sees exactly who Karen Maxwell really is. I spent the next day meticulously preparing. This wasn't just about building a legal case anymore, it was about exposing Karen Maxwell's actions to the entire community. I called Emma in the morning. The business association meeting is tonight. I think you should be there. I don't know if I can face her without falling apart, Emma admitted. You're stronger than you realize, I told her. And seeing you there with your children will remind everyone exactly who was harmed by her actions. I organized all the evidence into a professional presentation folder: photographs of the demolished coffee shop, the forged demolition order, official county documentation proving no permits were issued, witness statements and records of Karen's pattern of harassment. Then I made strategic calls to ensure the right people attended. The business owners who had agreed to speak out. Robert Chin and another board member who would support our claims. Dave Williams from the newspaper. The county building inspector whose signature had been forged. 2 deputies in plain clothes positioned at the exits. I didn't wear my uniform or badge. Tonight, I wanted Karen to underestimate me until the perfect moment. The meeting was held in the community room above Karen's coffee shop. By 7 p.m., the space was unusually crowded. Word had spread that something significant might happen. Karen looked surprised by the turnout but maintained her composure, dressed impeccably in a designer suit with her signature gold jewelry. We have a full agenda tonight, she began, glancing at her notes. Let's start with the district beautification project. Point of order, called Robert Chin from the board table. We have several community members here to discuss the demolition of Charlie's place. According to our bylaws, community concerns take precedence. Karen's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Very well. I believe Emma Johnson's brother requested to speak on this matter. You have 5 minutes. I walked to the front of the room, Emma and her children following. Lily clutched her mother's hand while Aidan carried a framed photo of the coffee shop. Thank you, Mrs. Maxwell, I said calmly. I'm here to discuss the demolition of my sister's business that occurred without proper permits, notification, or legal authority. Karen interrupted immediately. As we've already explained to you privately, the association took action after multiple violations. While unfortunate, it was completely within our authority. That's interesting, I replied, opening my folder. Because I have here an official statement from the county records office confirming that no demolition permits were issued or applied for at that address. I placed the document on the overhead projector. The room stirred as people read the official county letterhead. Furthermore, I continued, I have statements from witnesses who saw you personally supervising the demolition, which was carried out by Maxwell Demolition Services owned by your husband. Karen's face flushed slightly. The association has special provisions for emergency actions. I've reviewed your association bylaws, I cut in, placing another document on the projector. There are no provisions granting demolition authority. Such actions can only be taken by county officials with proper permits. The room had gone completely silent. Mrs. Maxwell, can you produce any legitimate documentation authorizing this demolition? She shuffled some papers. Those records are confidential association business. Is this the documentation you're referring to? I asked, projecting the forged demolition order. Because County Inspector Williams is here tonight, and he confirms he never signed this document. The county inspector stood up. That is not my signature, and my department issued no such order. Karen's composure began to crack. The board approved this action unanimously. That's not true, Robert Chin interrupted. Most of us never even saw this order and there was no vote. Another board member nodded in agreement. The minutes claiming unanimous approval were falsified. I turned to the audience. I've spoken with numerous business owners who have experienced similar harassment, arbitrary fines, and threats from Mrs. Maxwell and this association. 3 business owners stood up, sharing brief accounts of their experiences. With each testimony, Karen's face grew paler. This wasn't about violations, I continued. This was about eliminating competition for Maxwell Premium Coffee by illegally destroying a widow's business and livelihood. Emma stepped forward, her voice steady despite her emotion. You didn't just destroy a building. You destroyed my children's security, their father's legacy, and our family's only income. You did it deliberately while I was gone, giving me no chance to even save our personal belongings. Karen stood up abruptly. This is a smear campaign. You have no proof I personally ordered anything. That was the moment I'd been waiting for. I projected one final piece of evidence, Text messages between Karen and the demolition foreman explicitly discussing timing the demolition while Emma was away and the need to act before any legal complications arose. "Where did you get those?" Karen demanded, her voice rising. "That's private communication." "They were provided by Bill Decker, the foreman who carried out the demolition, believing it was legitimate. He's given a full statement about your instructions." Karen looked around the room, suddenly aware she was losing control of the situation. "Who do you think you are to conduct this kind of investigation?" It was time. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my badge. "County Sheriff Mike Johnson," I said clearly, holding up my badge for everyone to see. "And you, Karen Maxwell, have committed multiple criminal offenses that I've been investigating." The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. Karen's face drained of color as she realized the full implications of who she had been dealing with. You're the sheriff?" she stammered, her confident facade crumbling entirely. "Yes," I confirmed. "And based on the evidence gathered, the county prosecutor is filing charges against you for destruction of property, fraud, forgery of government documents, abuse of power, and conspiracy." I nodded toward the back of the room, where my deputies had moved to block the exits. "Officers are here to escort you to the station for formal questioning," I added. "I suggest you call your attorney." The meeting dissolved into chaos as people began talking all at once. Board members distanced themselves from Karen, business owners shared their own stories of harassment, and Dave the reporter took frantic notes. Emma stood tall beside me, one arm around each of her children. For the first time since the demolition, I saw something return to her eyes: hope. Karen Maxwell had demolished the wrong coffee shop. She had unknowingly taken on the county sheriff's family, and now she would face the full consequences of her actions. The arrest of Karen Maxwell became the biggest news story our county had seen in years. Dave's front-page article: Business Association President Arrested for Illegal Demolition of Widow's Coffee Shop, included photos of Karen being escorted from the meeting by deputies. Within 24 hours, the story went viral online. National news outlets picked it up as an example of small-town corruption and abuse of power. The image of Emma and her children standing amid the rubble of Charlie's Place sparked public outrage far beyond our community. Karen spent the night in county jail before her husband posted bail. Her attorney, an expensive suit from the city, made a brief statement claiming this was all a misunderstanding that would be quickly resolved. The county prosecutor thought otherwise. At the arraignment, he laid out the charges: a destruction of private property, fraud, forgery of government documents, conspiracy, abuse of power, illegal business practices. "Your Honor," Mike argued, "the defendant deliberately targeted a widowed mother's business, forged official documents, and committed these acts with full knowledge of their illegality. We request significant bail given the serious nature of these charges." The judge agreed, setting bail at $100,000 and requiring Karen to surrender her passport. Meanwhile, the consequences for Karen continued to mount. The franchise company that owned the Maxwell Premium Coffee brand announced they were terminating her contract due to actions inconsistent with our corporate values. The Business Association board voted unanimously to remove her as president and dissolve the organization entirely. Robert Chin led efforts to create a new, more transparent downtown business council with proper bylaws and oversight. Their first official act was to issue a public apology to Emma and establish a small business protection fund. The community's response to Emma's situation was overwhelming. The online fundraiser started by her former employee reached $75,000 in just 3 days. Local contractors offered services at cost to help rebuild. 3 different landlords offered vacant storefronts at reduced rent for a new location. Emma was stunned by the support. "I never realized how much Charlie's Place meant to everyone," she told me as we sorted through another batch of supportive cards and letters. "You didn't just serve coffee," I reminded her. "You created a community." 2 weeks after the demolition, we received word that Karen's husband's company was also under investigation. Records showed that properties demolished by their company had suspiciously been purchased by their business partners at below-market rates afterward. The investigation expanded to include the county commissioner who had appointed Karen to several advisory boards. He had received significant campaign contributions from businesses that benefited from the association's actions. "This is becoming bigger than just your coffee shop," I told Emma. "Karen's demolition order might have exposed corruption throughout the county." "I never wanted all this," Emma said, watching her children play in my backyard. "I just wanted my shop back." "You'll get something better," I promised. "And you'll also help make sure this never happens to anyone else." Emma agreed to be interviewed on local television. Her quiet strength and refusal to be portrayed as just a victim resonated with viewers. "I'm not asking for pity," she said. "I'm asking for accountability and the chance to rebuild what was taken from us." 3 weeks into the legal proceedings, Karen's attorney approached the prosecutor about a potential plea deal. "She's offering to plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for information about the larger corruption scheme," Mike told me. "What are you thinking?" I asked. "We don't need her testimony. The evidence against her is overwhelming, and we're building solid cases against the others involved. I'm inclined to take this to trial." I agreed. "No deals. She needs to face the full consequences of what she did to my sister's family." Meanwhile, Emma had selected a new location for Charlie's place, a charming storefront with large windows and more square footage than her original shop. The landlord, whose daughter had worked for Emma part-time, offered a 5-year lease with the first 3 months free. The rebuilding had begun, and with it, a sense that justice was truly in motion. The courtroom was packed the day of Karen Maxwell's trial. The case had attracted so much attention that the judge had to move proceedings to the largest courtroom in the county. Emma sat beside me in the front row, composed but nervous. The children were staying with a friend. We'd agreed this wasn't something they needed to witness. Karen entered looking nothing like the confident businesswoman who had demolished my sister's coffee shop. Her designer clothes had been replaced by a modest suit, her flashy jewelry gone. She kept her eyes down, avoiding the stares of community members who had gathered to watch justice unfold. The prosecutor laid out the case methodically, presenting the mountain of evidence we had gathered. The falsified demolition documents with forged signatures. Testimony from the demolition company workers. Text messages proving Karen knew there were no legal permits. A business association board members testifying about her falsified meeting minutes. Financial records showing how her husband's company benefited. The pattern of harassment against other small businesses. Most damning was the security camera footage from a nearby bank showing Karen watching the demolition from her car, smiling as the bulldozer tore through the front of Charlie's place. Her attorney tried to paint her as a well-intentioned community leader who had made procedural mistakes in her enthusiasm to improve the business district. The argument fell flat against the overwhelming evidence of deliberate, malicious actions. After 3 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for just 4 hours before returning with a verdict: guilty on all counts. The judge's sentencing speech was memorable. "Mrs. Maxwell, you abused your position of authority to deliberately target and destroy a widow's only means of supporting her family," he said, looking directly at Karen. "You showed a shocking disregard for both the law and basic human decency. Your actions were calculated, malicious, and caused significant harm to vulnerable members of this community." He sentenced her to 18 months in county jail, 5 years of probation following release, restitution of $350,000 to Emma for damages and lost income, 1,000 hours of community service specifically serving small business development, prohibition from serving in any business leadership position for 10 years. As the sentence was read, I saw Karen's shoulders slump. Her husband, who was facing his own legal troubles, sat stone-faced in the gallery. Outside the courthouse, Emma spoke briefly to reporters. "Today isn't about revenge," she said quietly. "It's about accountability. No one should have the power to destroy someone else's livelihood and walk away without consequences. I hope what happened to me helps protect other small business owners in the future." Her words made headlines across the state. Within weeks, legislators began drafting what would become known as Emma's Law, legislation specifically protecting small businesses from predatory practices and requiring multiple levels of oversight for any significant action against a business property. Karen's legal troubles weren't over. The IRS began an investigation into her and her husband's businesses, uncovering years of questionable financial practices. Their assets were frozen pending further investigation. 3 months after the verdict, construction on the new Charlie's place was nearly complete. The community had rallied around Emma, with local artisans creating custom fixtures, contractors donating materials, and former customers volunteering to help with painting and decorating. The new shop was larger and brighter than the original, with a special corner dedicated to Charlie's memory. The children's area had been expanded, with a beautiful mural depicting the story of resilience and community that had emerged from the destruction. One afternoon, I drove by the county work program site where low-risk offenders performed community service. There was Karen Maxwell wearing an orange vest, picking up trash along the highway. Our eyes met briefly as I passed. She quickly looked away, recognition and shame crossing her face. Justice had been served, but for Emma and her family, the real victory wasn't Karen's punishment, it was the rebirth of their dream and the strengthening of a community that had come together in the face of injustice. The grand reopening of Charlie's Place was scheduled for a Saturday morning in spring, exactly 5 months after the demolition. The night before, I helped Emma with final preparations, hanging the new sign that captured the spirit of her rebuilt business. Charlie's Place, stronger together, with a small phoenix rising from coffee beans. "Are you nervous?" I asked as she arranged photos on the memorial wall, Charlie holding baby Aiden, the family at the beach, and a salvaged picture of the original coffee shop on opening day. "A little," she admitted, "but mostly excited. I never imagined the new place would be so much better than before." And it truly was. Thanks to community support and the restitution money, the new Charlie's Place was twice the size with modern equipment, comfortable seating, and large windows filling the space with natural light. The children's area had been expanded into a proper play space where kids could safely enjoy themselves while parents relaxed. Most touching was the community wall where photos of the rebuilding process hung alongside notes of support from customers. Emma had insisted on including everyone who had helped, from contractors who donated materials to elderly neighbors who had baked cookies for the construction workers. By 8 a.m. on opening day, a line stretched down the block. People had come not just for coffee but to be part of a moment of community triumph. The mayor was there to cut the ribbon, local musicians provided entertainment, and the atmosphere was festive despite the cold morning air. Emma stood behind the new counter, her children beside her, as she addressed the crowd. "5 months ago, I thought I had lost everything," she began, her voice steady. "But what looked like an ending turned out to be a new beginning. Charlie's Place isn't just my coffee shop, it belongs to all of you who made this day possible." As the ribbon was cut, cheers erupted. Customers flooded in, exclaiming over the beautiful new space. Emma's staff, now expanded to include 2 additional baristas, worked efficiently behind the gleaming counter while Aiden proudly showed visitors the special drink menu named after community supporters. The Sheriff's Brew, a strong dark roast with a hint of cinnamon, had already become the most ordered item. By mid-morning, the shop was at capacity with a line still waiting outside. Local TV stations arrived to cover the story, interviewing customers about why they had come to support this particular business. "Emma and her kids are family to this town," one elderly regular explained. "When someone hurts our family, we stand up for them." Business remained steady all day, with Emma barely having a moment to catch her breath. When she finally took a break in the afternoon, she joined me at a corner table. "I can't believe this is real," she said, looking around at the bustling shop. 6 months ago, I was just trying to make ends meet. Now I'm hiring staff and thinking about offering health insurance." "You deserve every bit of this success," I told her. "But it wouldn't have happened without Karen's actions," Emma said thoughtfully. "As terrible as that day was, it led to something better than I could have built on my own. That was my sister, always finding the silver lining, just as she had after losing Charlie." The day's profits exceeded Emma's most optimistic projections. More importantly, customers weren't just coming out of sympathy or curiosity, they were genuinely impressed with the improved coffee, expanded menu, and welcoming atmosphere. This wasn't just a one-day success, it was the foundation of sustainable business growth. As we closed up that evening, Lily tugged on her mother's apron. "Mom, is our coffee shop going to be okay now?" she asked. Emma knelt down to her daughter's level. "Yes, sweetie. Our coffee shop is going to be more than okay. And no one can ever take it away from us again." I watched my sister lock the door of her new business, standing tall and confident. The woman who had called me in tears 5 months ago had been transformed, just like her coffee shop. She was stronger, more resilient, and surrounded by a community that valued her. Karen Maxwell had demolished the wrong coffee shop. In trying to destroy my sister's business, she had inadvertently helped create something far more powerful, a symbol of community strength and justice that would endure long after her name was forgotten. In the months that followed the reopening of Charlie's Place, the effects of Karen's actions and subsequent downfall continued to ripple through our community and beyond. Emma's business thrived beyond anyone's expectations. The shop was now a destination, with people driving from neighboring counties to visit the place they'd read about in news stories. 6 months after reopening, Emma hired 2 more staff members and extended her hours to accommodate demand. More meaningful than the financial success was the transformation in my sister. The confident business owner who had emerged from this ordeal was stronger and more determined than ever. She started a mentorship program for other single parents looking to start small businesses, sharing the hard-won wisdom from her experience. The children had healed too. Aiden had written a school essay titled, "When Bad Things Happen," describing how his mother had taught him that sometimes the worst days can lead to the best tomorrows. Lily had created a special corner in the new shop where kids could leave drawings about their dreams, inspired by how her mother's dream had been rebuilt. Throughout the county, significant changes took place in how business regulations were handled. The state legislature unanimously passed Emma's Law, requiring multiple levels of approval for any action against a small business, transparent documentation of violations, and protection from retaliatory measures by competitors. The law became a model for similar legislation in neighboring states. Emma was invited to the state capitol to speak about her experience, her quiet strength making a powerful impression on lawmakers. A photo of her standing with her children as the governor signed the bill made the front page of newspapers across the state. The corrupt network that Karen had been part of completely unraveled. The county commissioner resigned in disgrace when his connections to the scheme were exposed. Karen's husband's company was barred from government contracts for 10 years. Several other officials faced investigations and charges for their roles in similar abuses of power. Karen herself served her jail sentence without appeal. Through the correctional work program, she was assigned to clean up downtown streets, including the block where Charlie's Place now stood. Emma, in an act of grace that impressed even me, offered her a cup of coffee on a cold morning. Karen couldn't bring herself to respond beyond a mumbled "thank you," her eyes fixed on the ground. 1 year after the demolition, our town held a small business celebration day, organized by the new Downtown Business Council. The event featured local shops, restaurants, and services, with Charlie's Place serving as the central hub. Emma spoke briefly about the importance of community support and ethical business practices. "What happened to my shop could have destroyed us," she told the gathered crowd. "Instead, it brought this community together in ways I never imagined possible." Sometimes justice isn't just about punishing wrongdoing, it's about building something better in its place. As the celebration wrapped up, I found Emma sitting at a quiet table, watching her children help serve cookies to elderly customers. Something they'd done at the original shop. "Do you ever think about how differently things might have turned out?" I asked. Emma nodded. "If Karen had just harassed me with fines and citations like she did with the others, I might have eventually been forced out anyway. Or if you hadn't been the sheriff with the resources to investigate properly. Or if you hadn't been strong enough to fight back," I added. "I think about Karen sometimes," Emma admitted. "How she must have felt so powerful ordering that demolition, never imagining she was setting in motion her own downfall." "That's usually how justice works," I said. "Sooner or later, actions have consequences." Emma smiled, watching her thriving business and happy children. Karen thought she was ending my story that day. She didn't realize she was just starting a new chapter, one that would turn out better than anything I could have imagined. As the sun set over the new Charlie's Place, casting a golden glow through the large windows, I realized this story would be told in our community for generations to come. Not just as a cautionary tale about the abuse of power, but as a testament to resilience, community strength, and the simple truth that in the end, justice finds its way. Karen Maxwell had demolished the wrong coffee shop. In doing so, she had not only destroyed her own life but had unknowingly helped create something stronger and more beautiful than what had stood before. There was poetry in that kind of justice, the kind no courthouse could ever provide.